back here. How did Women's Day come to be observed? What was the history of Women's Day? In the year 1908, on the 8th of March, in the city of New York, about 15,000 garment workers, all of whom were women, most of whom were immigrants to the US from the poorer parts of Europe, marched on the streets of New York City demanding better pay, demanding an 8-hour work day, demanding dignified and better and improved working conditions, demanding dignity and rights due to them as workers. They were also, the reason they chose the 8th of March was because they were honoring a similar march that had happened on the 8th of March in the year 1857. Remember, this was 1908, and they were honoring a march that had happened once again by women workers in New York City in the year 1857, so almost about 50 years back. And in order to remind the city of New York that there had been a similar claim made by women workers, they chose the 8th of March to descend on the streets of New York City and raise their voice. In the cold winter months, and you know how cold New York can get, the East Coast can get in the winter, in the bitterly cold winter months of 1909 and 1910, there were successive demonstrations. In fact, it was called the Uprising of the 20,000. So essentially it was about working class women working in the garment factories. Many of them were working in tailoring units in sweatshop-like conditions, continuously marched and demonstrated and agitated on the streets of New York City. And for the first time, on account of this uprising of 15,000, many ladies of New York City, many of the upper class women of New York City came to realize for the first time, they came to discover that they were actually sweatshop-like working units, production units, garment units, in which large numbers of women were employed in the city. And sometimes some of them came out also in support to extend their solidarity to the women garment workers who were striking and marching and demonstrating as part of the uprising of the 20,000. Now, what it is, I feel it's necessary to begin with something that inspires me extremely from a page of forgotten history, because what these women were doing, and something that we should not ever forget, is that they were claiming the identities of workers. They were saying that we are workers too. We are women and we are workers. So when you think of a worker, don't only think of a man. When you think of an industrial worker or you think of an agricultural worker, a man should not automatically come to your mind. Women are workers, women are peasants, women are traders. So the voice that women are workers too was raised historically on the stage of world history fairly powerfully and with resonance in the year 1908, starting on the 8th of March, and therefore the Women's Day that we all know as Women's Day actually has a longer title. It's the International Working Women's Day. So I want to begin by extending all of you the greetings and solidarity on the occasion of the International Working Women's Day, which is where we are at today. And I